Welcome again. This is Mr. Gee with another video to go over some of the algebra that we've been learning in class. Right now we're learning how to solve equations and the different type of solutions that we end up with. We'll either have one solution like x equals some number, no solution, or infinite many solutions. Some of the properties, algebra properties that we're using is collecting like terms, using the distributive property, and also learning how to clear denominators. So right now we're doing problems 1 and 2. Problem number 1 involves collecting like terms and the distributive property, and then problem 2 involves the ideas of clearing a denominator. We'll go ahead and get started with problem number 1. Let me go ahead and zoom in. So first of all, we want to remove the parentheses using the distributive property. So that means the number outside the 6 will multiply into 4 to give me 24x, and the 6 will multiply the negative 8. Here it looks like it's subtract 8, which that is true, but in the case where we're using multiplication, we'll treat the subtract 8 as a negative 8. So on this right hand side we'll end up with 24x. That 6 times a negative 8 will give me a negative 48. And then for this left hand side we have like terms, and when we have two terms that have exactly the same type of variable, we can add the numbers in front. So 3 plus 4 will give me 7, so that'll be 7x plus 20. Now the next part here that we deal with is we look at the x term. We look at these two x terms and we decide which one we want to get rid of. I usually get rid of the smaller one, which enables me to keep my variable positive. And this is how this works here. If I have 7x, I know there's 0, and I have 7x here. To get 7x to go back to 0, I have to go to the left, and I have to go to the left 7x places. When I go to the left, that means that it's a negative number. So if I'm at a positive 7, then I have to go back negative 7, and that will give me 0, and that gets rid of the variable on the one side that I want it to vanish from. Now the algebra tells me that if I do it on one side, I have to do it on the other to keep my equation balanced. So I subtract 7x from the right hand side, and that will give me 17x minus 48. The 20 just comes down, so I end up my next step for equation, I'll have 20 equals 17x minus 48. And if you notice as I go through and do a problem, from one equation to the next, my equation gets simpler as I do it. Here I was able to get rid of the parentheses. Here I was able to collect like terms. I end up with 4 terms. And then from these 4 terms, I do one more step. I end up with 3 terms. And so on this next step, when I do it correctly, I'm going to end up with 2 terms. Now the next step involves getting the 17x by itself. You can see that it's on the right hand side, and also on the right hand side is a negative 48. So if I'm at a negative 48, there's 0, and I want to get the negative 48 back to 0. That means I have to go to the right, and I go to the right a positive 48. If I go to the right, it's always positive, so that tells me that I have to add 48. That will give me 0. So this is what I need to do to get the negative 48 to vanish. And then the algebra, the idea of keeping things balanced, says I have to do it to the other side. Now 20 plus 48 is 68. Let me move this up just a little bit farther. So now I have 20 equals, or 68 equals 17x. So 68 equals 17x. Now we know our equation. I want to have some number equals 1x. So how do I turn this 17 into 1x? Well, I can divide by 17. Anything divided by itself is 1. So this gives me the idea of what I need to do for my next step. So 17 divided by 17 will give me the 1. And then the algebra tells me if I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. So 68 divided by 17, if you take your calculator and do that, it will give you 4. So your final equation, or your final answer, is x equals 4. So that is one solution. That's one of the things that we're supposed to do, identify if we have one, no, or infinite type of solution. So here we have one solution. Alright, that's it for problem number 1. Okay, let's move on to problem number 2. And out of the ones on the quiz, I think this is the most difficult. So we have to find a common denominator. And we know our common denominator most likely will be 2 times 5. So we're going to use 10 for our common denominator. So somehow I have to change 5 to 10. And to change 5 to a 10, we know that I times the bottom by 2. And algebra also says if I times the bottom by 2, I also have to do to the top. Now 8's kind of different because there's no denominator, but anytime I have an integer or well, just an integer like a positive 8 or a negative 8, there's always at least a 1 in the denominator, so I can multiply that bottom by 10. And then again, if I multiply the bottom by 10, I also have to do the top. Now if I look at the 2 is missing the 5 as a factor, so I'm going to multiply the bottom by 5, and then I'll also do the top by 5. And now this is a little bit different. I have to change this a little bit. And to look at this, this is really like 15 over 1 plus 1/5. So to get 15 over 1 to have a 10, I have to multiply the bottom by 10 and the top by 10. And on this one, I have to multiply the bottom by 2 and the top by 2. And I hope that makes sense. So I'll end up with getting 2 times 3 is 6x over 10. Plus, that would be 80 over 10. And if you can see here, I really haven't changed anything. I'm just rewriting these coefficients and these numbers. So they still occupy the same point on the number line. 3 times 5 is 15, so that's 15x over 10. And then this last one I have, let's look at the numerator. I have 10 times 15 is 150 plus 2. So that has to be 152 over 10. Now that the bottoms all have 10, we could take an extra step by multiplying everything by 10 and clearing the denominators. See, if I multiply that one by 10, that one by 10, that one by 10, and that one by 10, distribute the 10. 10 over 10 is 1. These 10s would cancel. These 10s would cancel to 1 and be gone. These 10s would cancel, and so forth. So what I end up with is 6x plus 80 equals 15x plus 152. So basically what happens when I find this denominator here, get a common denominator, I usually don't show this step right here, and then all I do from this one step to the next is I just write the numerators. And you can see that I've taken something that's very, very difficult, and right from that step I can go to this equation just with the work that I've showed here. And probably the hardest step to do is to convert this from a mixed number to an improper fraction. And what I mean by an improper fraction is a number that has a numerator bigger than the denominator. Okay, now we've got an integer equation, so we look at our x terms, which one's the smallest of the two. Just like we did on number 1, I'm going to subtract 6x from each side. that goes to 0. And then 15 minus 6x is 9x. The 152 comes forward. And then 80 comes forward. So now my new equation is 80 equals 9x plus 152. And you can see that my problem gets simpler as I go. Here I had 4 terms, now I have 3. So remember, that's a good indicator that you're doing the problem correctly. Now the next step is I look to see what side my x is on. I check to see if there's a number with it. There is, so I want to subtract that number from each side. So that one goes to 0. The 9x just comes forward. And then over here I end up with 80 plus a negative 72. So 80 of these positives cancel out 80 of these negatives, and what I end up with is a negative 72. So this isn't 80 subtract a negative, it's 80 minus 152, and you can put that in your calculator and you'll get a negative 72. So now for my final step, I have 72 equals 9x. I want to get 9x. I want it to go to 1x. So what do? I divide it by 9. See there, 9 over 9 is 1, so I get the 1x. Divide it by 9. 9 into a negative 72 is a negative 8 equals x, or 1x. So it looks like I have a statement that says I have one solution. Okay, that shows you how to do a problem that has a denominator. Okay, we'll go ahead and start problem number 3. Now remember, on the quiz you'll have 2 problems like 1 and 2 that will have a solution, one solution, and then on 2 other problems, say for instance this will be 3 and 4, you'll have infinite solutions and then no solutions. And then on number 5, which will be a story problem, you will get an answer. We'll go ahead and start number 3. Let me zoom in. And okay, there we go. Looks like we've got to use the distributive property again. So the 2 will times to the 3, and the 2 will times to the 16. So 2 times 3 is 6x. 2 times 16 will be a positive 32. And then I have a negative 10x that I'll take care of a little bit later. Now on the right hand side you can see that I have 2 like terms here. So this is 12x minus 16x, so I want to take 12 minus 16. That will give me a negative 4. So this becomes a negative 4x. And then I have a negative 96, or subtract 96. Now you can see that I have like terms again right here. So I have 6 minus 10. That will give me a negative 4. So now I have a negative 4x plus 32 equals a negative 4x minus 96. Now when I get to this point, I'm going to add 4x to each side, and then something different happens. This goes to 0 on the left, and it goes to 0 on the right. And then when I bring what I have left forward, I end up with 2 numbers, one on the left and one on the right, and these are not equal. So when I have a statement where the number on the left and the number on the right are the number on the left and then the number on the right, they're not equal, that means I have no solution. So you have to write that there's no solution to this equation. So that's all that you've got to do. We'll go ahead and do number 4 real quick. So again, I've got 2 times 3, or 3 times 2, and then 3 times a negative 4. This is subtraction, but remember, when I'm multiplying a number that's being subtracted from another number, that I look at it as a negative number. So 3 times 2 is 6x. 3 times a negative 4 is a negative 12, and then I have the negative 10x with it. And then you can see that I have like terms right here, a negative 1 minus 3. That gives me a negative 4. So that'll equal a negative 4x again, and then I have a negative 12. So this is very similar to our other problem. I'm going to collect these two like terms. I have 6 minus 10. That will give me a negative 4x. Negative 4x minus 12 equals a negative 4x minus 12. Now I will add 4x to each side. And then this is kind of very similar to what happened on the other problem, except for one thing. These x terms goes to 0. Now if I look at my final statement, I have 12 equals a negative 12. I have identical numbers on the left and right, and when I have the same numbers on the left or right, that means I have infinite many solutions. And really what that means, it doesn't matter what x that I choose. I can choose any x in here, and it will always be true. Now for our last equation, it's a story problem. And with this story problem, you're going to have a left-hand side and a right-hand side. So this first equation, we're going to have club A on the left, and that we're going to have club B on the right. Okay, so we've got to take a look at what we've got here. Let me go ahead and zoom in and get started on this problem. Well, first of all, I've got to read it. It says you are choosing between two health clubs. You're going to choose between Club A. Club A offers membership for a fee of $94.50. So that's a one-time fee that you pay when you join, plus a monthly rate of $18 a month. So what happens on this, I join the club for $94.50, and then every month after that that I want to use the club, I have to pay $18. And then there's another club, Club B, offers membership. Its fee is $108 for a one-time fee, plus a monthly rate of $15.75. So after how many months will the cost for the membership be the same? So here's my starting point. So I'm going to have $94.50 plus $18. It looks like I let M be my variable, M. So $94.50 plus however many months I'm going to be a member will be how much money I spend. And then in Club B I have $108 plus $15.75 per month. Now we could go ahead and multiply each term by 100 to clear the decimals, and I'm going to do that right now. That'll move that decimal over twice. I'll do it to the 18, I'll do it to the 108, and then I'll do it to the 1575m. Now my new equation becomes 9450. There's no decimals, they're gone. Then I have 1800. I move the decimal over twice, and then M equals 108, and then I've got two decimals, so that's 10,800. And then over here I have 1575m. So this is the equation that I'm going to solve now. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in, and all I've done is just move the decimal over two places by multiplying by a power of 10. So now I want to look at my numbers, get rid of the smallest variable term, so that's 1575. I'll subtract from the left hand side, and then I'll subtract it from the right hand side. I think that gives me 225m. These other terms just come forward, so that's 9450 plus 225m equals 10,800. So that's my next equation. You can see that it's getting simpler. Where I had 4 terms, now I have 3. I'm going to go ahead and write this up over here, and I'll continue my equation on over here. So I have 9450 plus 225m, 225 months, and then I have 10,800. I almost forgot a 0 there. 10,800. Now again, I look at my side that has the variable term, and the number that's with the variable term, I'm going to subtract that one away. In this case, I'm using subtraction because this is positive. Now, if this was a negative, here, then I would add it, right? So that one goes to 0, and then I subtract 9450. The 225 is just going to come forward. And 10,800 minus 9450 equals 1350. Alright, now for the final thing that I need to do is just simply divide 225. This side gets it to go to 1m. And then I do it to the other side because I have to. And then 225 divided into 1350 is 6. So it takes 6 months before the amount of money that I spent on versus Club A and Club B. After membership for 6 months, I'll be spending the same amount of money. So those are your problems for the quiz. Again, remember, you'll have 2 that you'll have either no solution or infinite many solutions, one or the other. And then on 2 of the problems, you'll have 1 solution where you have an x equals some number statement. And then on your last problem, you'll have a story problem that will deal with the health club. And remember, everything has an integer answers. Thanks for tuning in, and have a great evening.